Are you beating me up? Are you gonna hit me? Are you gonna hit me? Are you gonna hit me? I'm a woman! It's not supposed to be like this. It's not supposed to be.
So who started that?
More than 2 decades since the end of apartheid, this recent assault by 5 men on a black couple in Pretoria outside a KFC drive-through outlet has once again sparked emotional debates around South Africa's seemingly tense and fragile race relations. 3 of the men were arrested at the spot and 2 more were later apprehended after they initially fled the scene. The men have appeared before court on charges of assault, but after several conflicting media reports, it was information that emerged from the men's court appearance that led to even more shock and confusion. The men were part of 2 groups, not one, and these 2 groups did not know each other when they stopped at the same fast food outlet in separate cars. What can ignite total strangers, in this case all white men, into such a fit of anger unleashed onto a black man and woman? And is there any other way to look at this incident, as has been suggested by some social media posts, than through the lens of tense race relations?
It really boggles my mind how people can actually come together, and it says something about the learned behavior that becomes a part of a cult of a particular race of people, that they feel comfortable doing this thing because it's just what we do.
Nomfundo Walaza, a clinical psychologist, works for Peace Systems in Cape Town with years of experience in human rights and social transformation initiatives.
We have not dealt with our separateness. I think that's what it is, really. Because when it comes to the crunch, white people go with the white people and say, they want to protect the white people. And black people want to protect black people. It's just, I think that's how societies are structured.
Just is that so? You can't come here and be
Is that so?
Such a big man, being a bully.
I'm telling you, you could.
The KFC assault case follows another controversial incident at a Spur restaurant in Johannesburg a few months ago. The verbal altercation between a white man and a black woman who were fighting over an alleged brawl between their children was filmed on someone's cell phone and uploaded onto social media. The incident caused an immediate storm. The racial divide was as clear as daylight.
We live in a society where women are so looked upon as objects for people to vent their anger. It's very much the hatred of the other. And I think when the emasculation kind of stuff comes in as well, where men feel, because, there is the sense that, I'm a man and I can get any woman I want. You can imagine what happens when, a white male basically gets rejected by a black woman, and whatever the person feels as having been violated in terms of how they see themselves, and it's a sliding slope from there.
I think men have particular challenges. Masculinities are very, very entrenched in the patriarchies of South Africa, black and white.
Marjorie Jobson is part of the Kulumani Victim Support Group. The organization has worked very closely with victims and perpetrators of apartheid atrocities, but their work also branches into other transformation initiatives.
I think some of the most incredible work was done around a program called Making a Man's World Also a Woman's Place. And so it's not just, now we're talking about not just the man's world, we're talking about making this world a place for everybody, where there is a real experienced equality, equality of respect, equality of value.
Following the Spur incident, the restaurant banned the man in the video from all its outlets countrywide and condemned his behavior in the light of violence against women and children. This ban led to a boycott by Afrikaner group Front National, who felt Spur was unfairly focusing on only the white man's behavior and should have also banned the black woman in the video. This boycott had a huge financial impact on Spur's profits. Amid the boycott, Dirk Herman from the pro-Afrikaans trade union Solidariteit wrote an open letter to Spur accusing them of double standards, while Spur insisted they were acting in the best interest of women and children.
Met die Spur-voorval het mense gevoel daar was 'n dubbele standaard. En onthou, die eerste gevoel is die gevoel wat bly staan. Die openbare opinie werk nie met nuances nie. So jy kan nie na die tyd sê ja, maar dit en daar's nog 'n stukkie video, maar kyk net mooi daarna nie. Die eerste video wat uitgekom het, het gelyk asof daar twee volwassenes is wat hulle eenvoudig swak gedra het. En Spur sê ek verban die een, ek sit selfs plakate by al my Spurs op om vir mense te wys dit is hy. En die ander een vra ek om verskoning. En mense dit as 'n dubbele standaard beleef.
Solidariteit condemns the KFC incident as bullying with a racist element.
In hierdie geval was dit bullies wat hulle wangedra het en ek dink daar was 'n rassistiese element ook. Maar die primêre is nie. Dit is die primêre afleiding wat nie gemaak kan word is dat hierdie onderliggende rassespanning in Suid-Afrika is en die KFC voorval is 'n voorbeeld van 'n algemene rasprobleem in Suid-Afrika nie.
But the racial divide in how these altercations between individuals from different race groups are interpreted is not restricted to the KFC or Spur incident. Those working on transformation initiatives believe these highly emotive incidents that trigger equal emotive responses in society can never be seen in isolation.
White people have no concept of the thousands and thousands of daily humiliations that black people have endured in this country, and there's a huge build-up that triggers unpredictable impacts and that make white people feel very, very threatened. And I mean, for me, the idea, the aim of our work is to disarm white people so that they can become able to listen to those stories of desperate humiliation and shame, you know.
We also want to call upon our fellow Indians here in Natal to respect Africans. They are ill-treating them. They are ill-treating them worse than Afrikaners will do. We don't want that to continue here in Natal.
Economic freedom fighter leader Julius Malema is no stranger to controversy. His recent utterances about South Africans from Indian descent could see him charged again with hate speech. Some social commentators warn that, given these fractured relationships in the broader South African society, political leaders especially should steer away from playing the race card.
Based on racial lines. There's a black vote and a colored vote and an Indian vote in this country. And we talk we talk as if it's normal to talk about a black vote and a white vote. From the politicians, from what happens in parliament, when the state of the nation happens, and you can see the politics in that chamber are race politics. And if we're not going to say that and talk about that and say, how do we change that? We're not going to make any headway anyway. If we're going to be afraid to name it, I believe that in order to change something, in order to shift the dynamics, in order to change the narrative, you've got to name it and not be afraid and be courageous enough to say, this is what it is.
The farmer kiss the poor. The farmer.
Malema has been charged in the past before the Equality Court for his refusal to stop singing the struggle song Kill the Boer in public. In September 2011, the Equality Court declared that this song constitutes hate speech.
Wat wel gereguleer moet word, is haatspraak en rasisme deur mense met gesag. So dit beteken dit is vertikale rasisme. As byvoorbeeld iemand met 'n gesag, soos iemand wat 'n leier is van 'n politieke party sê, dat wites dalk in die toekoms geslag moet word, is dit gevaarlik. Daai persoon behoort vervolg te word en hy behoort swaarder gestraf te word. En die interessante is dat die internasionale wêreld sê die rede hoekom mense met gesag beperk moet word en swaarder gestraf moet word, is om volksmoord te keer.
The Equality Act of 2000 governs issues around racism and hate speech. In late December 2015, KwaZulu-Natal estate agent Penny Sparrow's racist remarks about black beachgoers led to a public outcry.
The respondent is interdicted and restrained from publishing, propagating, advocating or communicating hate speech as defined in Section 10 of the Equality Act in any form whatsoever.
She was charged before the Equality Court and ordered to pay a fine of 150,000 rand. In response to Sparrow's racist remarks, Gauteng government official Velapi Khumalo posted these remarks on Facebook, in which he called for the country to be cleansed of whites. Last year, the Human Rights Commission announced that it would refer Khumalo's case to the Equality Court for hate speech, but his case has not been finalized yet.
With criminalizing racism, the focus has been on criminalizing racial bigotry in terms of what is said, racial slurs and so on, instead of dealing with the root cause of that racism. And the root cause of that racism is a material base.
Nkululeko Majosi is one of the co-authors of a Human Sciences Research Council paper looking at whether South Africa needs specific anti-racism laws. Nkululeko questions the fairness of anti-racism laws if equally applied to a person making a racist remark and a person reacting in defense to that remark.
You cannot be racist without the power to subjugate. And historically, when we look at that historically, it is white people who have had the power to subjugate. And the victims of racism have historically been black people. So if you put in a law which now puts everyone on the same scale, and you say we are equally going to arrest or criminalize anyone who speaks on the issue of race and racism, that creates an imbalance. When you look at our history as a country.
They are racist across all color lines. They are people who view the other in different ways, and we can't deny that. What is important is that we can't equate a particular way of viewing racism from those who've suffered the yoke of apartheid, for those who have been told time and time again that just because of the sheer color of your skin, you're stupid. You smell, you this, you that. That is a heavy burden to carry. And I think those people who say you can't be racist are operating from that kind of understanding. This happens all the time. All the time.
This video of Johannesburg estate agent Vicky Momberg showed her earlier this year hurling racist remarks at a black police officer trying to assist her after a smash and grab incident. The Equality Court sitting in Randburg found that Vicky's utterances constituted hate speech. She was ordered to pay the black police officer 100,000 rand in damages. Last year, Penny Sparrow was also criminally charged with crimen injuria in a local KwaZulu-Natal court and fined 5,000 rand for the offence. Law experts say cases of racism are more difficult to prove in a criminal court than before the Equality Court.
In a criminal case, the standard of proof is beyond reasonable doubt. So you need to prove your case beyond reasonable doubt. You have to have evidence that is overwhelming enough to be able to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt. And then In the equality court, we deal with the balance of probabilities. So how probable is it that your version of events might be realistic vis-a-vis my version of events?
Recently, Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Justice and Constitutional Development wrapped up public hearings on the proposed hate crimes and hate speech bill that was introduced after much debate by civil society and government last year, following a wave of racism cases making headlines in 2016. Some say the bill will infringe on freedom of speech, others question the need entirely.
Oor die algemeen dink ek ons het eintlik alreeds baie goeie wetgewing wat haatspraak en eintlik al klaar reguleer en dit is nie goed om eintlik morele kwessies altyd te wil reguleer nie. Dit wys daar is iets fout in die gemeenskap.
Ek is nie kwaad vir hom. Ek is nie kwaad, ek kan dit doen. Ek kan nie. Van die universiteit? Ek kan nie dit doen.
Last year, in the much-publicised so-called coffin case in Mpumalanga, Theo Jackson and Willem Oosthuizen forced victim Hlotshwa into a coffin and threatened to set it alight after they accused him of theft and trespassing. The two men have been criminally charged in the Delmas High Court with kidnapping and assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm. Law experts believe the recorded video clip of this incident will assist to bring justice for the victim in this case. However, in other cases, like this footage that surfaced a few weeks ago, where an Ocean Basket restaurant manager in Benoni, Gauteng, assaulted a junior worker, some law experts feel the courts, including the Equality Court, even under existing laws, remain inaccessible to the majority of victims, and that new anti-racism laws won't translate into greater access to the justice system. In this case, the victim decided not to bring charges against his assaulter.
Our relationship to the courts is from a perspective of, going to defend yourself against in a criminal prosecution whereby you are the defendant and so on. And so, for an ordinary black person from the township saying that I'm going to the Equality Court because someone said this to me at Spur or wherever, it's not such an accessible thing for us. So maybe the equality courts can work for those that can access them, can afford to access them, but for the majority of the people, I don't think so.
In our top story this hour, there was pandemonium in Kolini in the Northwest Province that has been rocked by racial tensions, and it followed the granting.
Shortly after, an SOS over a two-way radio.
By plaas Rietvlei, hulle is besig om ons huis met klippe en goed te gooi en deur die mure te kom, asseblief maak.
In May this year, turbulence and violence erupted in the northwest farming town of Kolini. Furious black residents took to the streets and set several houses alight following the death of a local teenager in the community. The term race war was uttered in conversations across the country. Later, two local white farmers, Pieter Doorwaard and Philip Schutte, were arrested for the murder of a black teenage boy, Matlomola Mosweyu, after they allegedly forced him onto a bakkie following suspicions that he had trespassed onto a farm they were tasked to safeguard, and accused the youth of stealing sunflowers. The exact circumstances around Motlamola's death is now at the centre of a widely broadcasted criminal high court case in that province. Children in South Africa are often exposed or fall victim to racism. These learners at a Johannesburg school were confronted with racism inside the classroom. A teacher at St. John's College was first demoted after racial remarks towards non-white children, but the Gauteng Education Department had to step in and pressure the private school before the teacher was fired.
What we need to do is to deal with racists decisively. you must not give racists a room to breathe. We must really nip any form of racism mercilessly. We must not allow racism to raise its ugly heads.
Of course, we can't isolate children from these realities, but what happens afterwards? And we then go into these interviews to talk about the racism, but we don't talk about who was responsible for the children, who debriefed the children, what happened to those children, where are they, how are they decoding or understanding what was happening, how are they living with it, and how is that going to frame how they react to other children if they've seen something like that.
Amid all the seeming racial tension in the country, a controversial report by the Institute for Race Relations earlier this year suggests that only 3% of South Africans see racism as a serious unresolved issue.
Sosiale media is nie die werklikheid nie. Wat daar gebeur is, 'n persoon sit in 'n veilige omgewing, waarskynlik sy kamer of sy kantoor of sy kar, en hy tik goeters en hy sê dinge na buitekant toe, en hy besef nie, daar waar hy praat, is hy nie in 'n veilige omgewing nie. En dan sê hy dinge wat hy nie normaalweg sou gesê het nie, maar dit is 'n abnormale situasie. Die oomblik as daardie persoon in 'n normale omgewing geplaas word, dan daardie omgewing plaas 'n klomp dissipline op hom. En dan kan hy nie meer sê wat hy wil nie, hy kan nie doen wat hy wil nie, want daar is gemeenskapsdissipline.
There's this kind of sensational thing around these incidences. So, the incident happens here, the incident happened here. That's where the media focuses and puts on the public platform. This is what's happening. But there's no sense where we can get stories where positive things do happen. Can you imagine what it will mean for South Africans if we were to capture the places where things look different, and we capture relationships where there isn't this kind of tension, or we capture people being together?
The majority of white South Africans haven't experienced the enrichment of real exchanges. I mean, I was lucky to be in a professional field, but I think most other people have barely broken out of their geographic isolation, and experienced how much there is to learn from black South Africans. All white South Africans have these histories of complicity, and it's not about being guilty for the complicity, it's about actually taking action to end the complicity towards sort of racial equity in this country and all the rewards that that can bring.
As a people, we feel defeated in the sense that we have no control of our economy in our own country. We don't have control of our own destinies as a people. And so that indignity of living in poverty every day, whilst we watch on as our white counterparts enjoy life under the rainbow, is at the center of this thing, of how we view these things. So that's why I say race and racism in South Africa are a political and social problem than they are a legal problem.